Okay, students. So hopefully you did not unhide this. You don't need to understand all this stuff up here. You don't need to know that. That's not for you. That was just to explain where I'm pulling the data here from. So this information down here is being pulled from the information up there. You don't need to know what's going on up there. You need to know what's going on right here. If you cannot explain this area right here, this blue, why did we take 20%? Why did we take 89%? Why did we take 280 days? Why did we take 28 days? Why did we take 0 days? Why did we take 5 days? If you can't explain why we did that, then you don't understand this model and you'd probably get fired. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain what the hell is happening here. So, as you can see, over here we have 120%. That means we're taking 100% and then we're adding 20% to it. And that's how we come up with our sales increase. We're saying for every single dollar we make, we're going to spend 89 cents. Every dollar we make, we're spending 89 cents. We're not spending, 88.1 cents. We're not spending 89.7 cents. We're spending 89.8 cents on every single dollar that we spend. And that is conservative. That's assuming that we're only going to profit 11 cents. 280 days. We're assuming that we only have 280 days of cushion. We can only run our operations for 280 days before we run out of current assets. We don't have any cushion past 280 days. Now, we have 28 days until our customers pay us. They take 28 days. They don't take 14 days. They're not paying us in 24 days. They're paying us back in 28 days. And then here, we're assuming that they're paying us back in 31 days. Right? Here, we pay our suppliers every 5 days. Every 5 days when we purchase inventory, they can count on it. We're going to pay them back within 5 days. It's only going to take us 5 days to pay them back. So now, this is where things start to become a little bit more complicated. And I'm going to need you to pay very close attention to what's happening here. We have our working capital. This is the science of finance. This is when it gets hard. This is when you start to understand how important you are. We're not doing stuff that anybody can do. We're doing stuff that they can't do. You guys are smart. This is when you start to understand the difference between you and everyone else who doesn't understand how money works. We just created a model, or we filled out a model that's going to do what this tells us down here. So let's get down there. Let me explain it. If you read the chapter, you understand how working capital works. Working capital tells us how much current assets we have minus how much current liabilities we have. On its own, it doesn't tell us very much. However, we can take the increase and the decrease in working capital. Or actually, sorry about that. Let me go in here. This isn't just working capital. This is net working capital. Oh man, that's a typo. That's gonna haunt me, guys. That's my bad. I can see where the issue is gonna come in. So this is net working capital. And if you did the homework, then you'll understand what net working capital means. Everybody who did the homework knows that net working capital can tell us the cash impact of changes in net working capital. It can tell us the cash impact that occurs because of the changes in inventory. It can tell us the cash impact that occurs because of the changes in accounts receivable, the changes in accounts payable, the changes in current liabilities, the changes in current assets. It tells us this is how much cash we lose every time this thing goes up, every time this thing goes down. So, in this situation, let's just use this for example. Our net working capital is 445. That means we're taking current assets and we're taking out all interest bearing assets and we're taking out cash. So all of the short-term stocks and the cash accounts and the marketable securities and the money market accounts, we're taking all that out. And we're left with inventory, non-operating current assets, other current assets, accounts receivable. We're left with the stuff that tied cash up. And then we're going to subtract that by accounts payable, non-operating current liabilities, accruals. We're not going to subtract it by revolving line of credits. That's debt. We're not going to subtract it by current portion of long-term debt. That's interest bearing. We're taking that out. So anyways, we have our net working capital right here. If you read the chapter, you understand that if net working capital goes down to 151, that means that we collected on our inventory, or we sold inventory and we collected on accounts receivable, or we borrowed some money in the form of an account payable. And how much did we borrow, Makai? Well, it says it right here. Our net working capital went down $294,000. If our net working capital goes down $294,000, that means our cash account went up $294,000. Every time it goes down, every single time it goes down, we're collecting, we're getting money back. Okay? So you see this purple cell titled cash impact. You see the cell above it titled increase, decrease in net working capital. And then you see the cell above that, net working capital. So we have net working capital. Once we calculate the change in net working capital, then we can see how much cash we get or how much cash we've lost. So let's go here. 2024. In 2024, our net working capital was negative, which means we lost $264,000 worth of net working capital. And that means that we gained $264,000 in cash. Same here. Net working capital, it increases, which means we gained $374,000 worth of net working capital, but we lost $374,000 in cash. Now, I want y'all to take notice of this right here. It says less. This is cell J, cell 36. It says less. Now, let me see if I can't change something here. Let's put 50 days here. It says plus. Now, when this says plus, that means that we actually have an excess of cash. When this says less, that means we lost cash. So what we did here was we reverse engineered our accounts receivable days on hand, our inventory days on hand, and our accounts payable days on hand, so that we can calculate how much net working capital we would have in the future. Our future net working capital is $270,000. And if you want to see how we did that, I suggest you go and read the chapter over working capital. Look for the textbook inside of you guys' file folder. Every single one of you guys who was assigned a project, it's inside of your file folder. It's titled 0 Textbook. If you look 0 Interactive Textbook, if you open that up, go to the chapter titled Capital. I believe. And once you get to the final pages, it will explain to you how we can use days on hand to calculate the amount of assets that we'll have during that period. So if sales go up, then that means that if we use the days of hand equation and we rework that, then we can calculate the amount of accounts receivable, total receivables we'll have. And if we calculate that, then what we end up doing is we end up with a net working capital. You know, this is pretty cool stuff, honestly. And what I'll do is I'll unhide this again. Let me unhide this again. If you look here, we calculated it. I know I'm moving fast, guys. Let me slow down. You see accounts receivable days on hand. We have our days on hand calculated. So we take that days on hand. We're going to take our days on hand. We're going to do our sales divided by 365 times our days on hand. And what that's going to do is that's going to calculate how much accounts receivable we have in the future. Right here, we're going to calculate how much accounts receivable or how many current assets we have in the future. Right here, same thing. We're going to calculate how many payables we have in the future. We're going to take sales, we're going to divide it by 365, and then we're going to multiply it by our days on hand. Our days on hand were 5 days here. Now this is the science of finance. We calculated this is how many current assets we have. This is how many current liabilities we have. So if we go and we take 1558 and we subtract 982 from that, then we're going to end up with an increase in total current assets. We increased our total current assets, which means we lost cash. We lost cash. Now here we did the same thing with total current liabilities. We increased total current liabilities, which means we gained cash. But just because we gained cash here doesn't mean it's worth anything. As you see, we gained cash here, and we gained $9,000 worth of cash, right? But the equation's not done yet. We also predicted how much current operating expenses we would have. This is how much operating expenses we're expecting to have. $2 million worth. So we go down here and we calculate our, oh, well, I haven't gotten to that. Whew. Okay, so anyways, hopefully you understand what's happening right here when we're calculating our cash impact. This is the cash impact of our change in net working capital. Here we have the same thing. Cash impact of our change in net working capital. Okay, so let me hide that again. So once we come back down here, we know how we calculated this. We took our net working capital, which is calculated by our net current assets minus our net current liabilities. And then we got 270,000, which is an increase from the most recent working capital, which means that we lost $9,000 worth of cash, which means that we lost $9,000 worth of cash. As you see right here inside the purple. Look for the purple. Read the purple. Now let's go back down. Actual net working capital minus revolving line of credit. So remember, these guys have a revolving line of credit. They're already borrowing from us. So if they're borrowing from us, that means that they cannot use that money. They can't do it. They can't borrow on top of money they've already borrowed. And right here, we're taking our current our revolving line of credit that they've already borrowed. We're adding that in. And then we're also going to take our what's it called? We're going to take out, wait a minute, minus revolving line of credit. Let me check that out. Oh, right. Okay, sorry about that. So anyways, we're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, we have this, and we're going to take 1 week worth of operating expenses. We're not going to do the full $2 million. We're just going to assume that we're doing 1 week. So we're taking our operating expenses divided by 26, which tells us 1 week. And then we have our required revolving line of credit, right? We have our revolving line of credit. This is how much cash we're gonna need. We have our real revolving line of, we have our not net working capital, right? And then we have this right here, which takes out the amount of cash that we've already borrowed, and then it takes out our current operating expenses, and that's gonna tell us how much cash we need in order to finance this company. So we need $1 million if we have a stressful year. With these factors, we're going to need $1 million worth of cash. With these factors, we're going to need $1.3 million worth of cash. Right now, our customer, we have maybe a maximum line of $224,000, maybe. Not sure, you know, it's not a lot of cash. So anyways, that's how you calculate net working capital. So anyways, the homework, you know, I'm 17 minutes in. Let me speed this up. This is gonna be a long one, guys. So onto your project. We're gonna scroll down, way down. So when we see a chart that looks like that, okay, here we go. We're gonna take this chart. Again, remember, some of you guys don't have the feature to be able to copy it like I do. What I want you to do is take a screenshot if you need to. And if you don't have to take a screenshot, that means you're like me and you can copy it as a picture. Copy it as shown when printed. Backspace, Control V, we got it here. Okay. Or for the people who need to do it as a screenshot, I'll show you how. Again, we'll come here. Dang, it's acting wonky. Okay. We're gonna go in. We're gonna take our screenshot. And we're gonna move that over here, right? And now we have it over here. Whichever way you have to do it, you know. I prefer the picture way, but do it however you need to do it, okay? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna fill out these assumptions down here. So for the sake of knowing what we've done so far, we're gonna highlight it. So it asks us, in the most recent period, AR days on hand was 43 days. To stress the model, we assume 48 days, which is the average of the past 4 periods, which is the greatest value of the two. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, what did we do? We did AR days on hand, and the most recent period was 30 days. 30 days, and you see where I'm pulling that. We got it right here. It says 30 days. To stress the model, we assume 28 days, which I'm pulling from right here. We got 28 days, which is the average of the past 4 periods, which is the greatest of the two. Oh, in the most recent period, AR days on hand. Right. Okay. Let me change this. Which was the most recent of the most recent fiscal year end and average. Okay, that works fine. Inventory days on hand. Well, you know, I'll show you how to do it with mine. In the most recent period, inventory days on hand was 0. To stress the model, we assume 0 days, which is the average of the 4 periods, which is the greatest of the two. So if you're like me, and if you're not like me, and you do have inventory, that's how you would fill this out. If you're like me and you do not have inventory, you would simply say the borrower does not historically report inventory. Okay? Simple. Keep it simple, one sentence. AP days on hand averaged 5 days. The model assumes 5 days, which is the lowest value of the most recent fiscal year end and average. Okay, that works. That reads well. AP days on hand averaged 5 days over the 4 periods. The model assumes the current period of 5 days. The model assumes the average of 5 days. Which is the lowest value of the most recent fiscal year end and average days on hand. Good. Okay, conclusion. Cash impact. If sales increase by 20%, cash will be negatively impacted $9,000. So that's going to be 9M. Cash will negative, and I'm pulling that from the purple cell, guys. Purple, it says it's going to be negative 9M. So $9,000 less. Furthermore, if sales are stressed by an additional 10%, cash will be negatively impacted $327,000. And I'm pulling that from this side, guys. Remember, we added a 10% factor here, and then we ended up with $327,000 less. Look at the purple cells. What row is it in? It's in the cash impact row, and it's purple. And then it's in the 10% factor column. So that's how we did that. Cash impact. If sales increase by 20% cash, if sales increase by 20%, comma, cash will be negatively impacted. Cash will be negatively impacted $9,000. Furthermore, if sales are stressed by an additional 10%, comma, cash will be negatively impacted $327,000. Good. Revolving line of credit. If sales increase by 20%, the borrower will need $1 million. And as we see right here, that corresponds. If you have something different, remember, just put 3 mil or 8 mil or whatever you have. I have 1 million, so I'm going to leave it. In addition, in additional financing. Furthermore, if sales are stressed by an additional 10%, the borrower will need $4 million. No. Mine, it says they're going to need $1.379 million. So we can round that to $1.4 million in additional financing. And again, we got that from the lowest row where it says required revolving line of credit in purple. And then it has this right here, and then it has this. Okay, and that's how you do the working capital. Once you finish it, make sure that you save Save it to a place where you can access it in the future, and then I want you to email it to me. Okay, that's all, y'all. Thank you. Bye bye.